Hello, colonists. Mr. Long here. We have not done a video lecture for quite some time now. So, in the recent weeks, we have covered numerous topics. We have talked about totalitarianism and the type of government it is. We've also talked about a form of totalitarianism, which is fascism, which developed not only in Italy under Benito Mussolini, but also in Germany under Adolf Hitler. So we've also mentioned the rise of Hitler. We did a biography on Hitler, so you guys have some background information on him, and we just finished up on the Holocaust. So now what we are going to focus on today is events leading up to World War II and the beginning of World War II in the 1930s. So we are going to start off with Hitler taking over in 1933 or becoming chancellor in 1933 all the way through 1939 when Germany invades Poland, starting World War II. So that's what we will be focusing on today. So what I need you guys to do, of course, is I need you to please pay attention to the video lecture because there is so much more that I do add um, besides the notes that you are taking and the questions that you will be answering. So please listen up, stop, pause, rewind if you need to. That's the whole point of doing these video lectures. So with that being said, just a quick review. So in front of you guys, what you see is a chart, and these are the major aspects or topics of the Treaty of Versailles, of course, which is the treaty that was signed right after World War I, which Germany loses. And Germany is forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and they are obligated and forced to follow all these requirements in the chart that you guys see in front of you. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to, this is a review once again, but I want you to copy down the chart onto your handout. And please abbreviate, shorten if you need to, but this is all review. So let's start off the left-hand column, the League of Nations. Remember what the League of Nations is. It was formed after World War I. It's an international peace organization. So it's a big group of countries, and its main goal is to keep peace, to make sure that another world war or any war never breaks out again. Originally, Central Powers and neutral countries were excluded, which means they were not allowed to join the League of Nations, which included Germany and, of course, Russia, because Russia got out of the war early. Remember, they signed the treaty. Vladimir Lenin, when he took over during the Russian Revolution, that's one of the first things that he did was get out of World War I so Russia could focus on the Civil War and the revolution that they were fighting within their own country. But eventually, Germany and these other countries were accepted into the League of Nations. A major aspect of the Treaty of Versailles was territorial losses. Germany will lose the important Alsace-Lorraine territory once again to France. This is a territory that is constantly being passed back and forth between Germany and France. And as a result of this, and Germany losing, they give that land back to France. Germany is also forced to surrender all of its overseas colonies. Remember, we talked about imperialism, guys. Imperialism is when a big, powerful country takes over a smaller country because they want something. And what they want will vary. They may want the natural resources. They may want more land because more land equals more power. They may want the land because it's right next to a river or the ocean. It's good for trade and business. Whatever the case is, Germany loses all of its colonies, which means ultimately they lose a lot of their wealth and a lot of their power that comes with it. Military restrictions. Remember, they limit the size of the German army. If you remember from the DBQ, Germany is only allowed to have 100,000 troops. And those 100,000 troops are not even active troops. They're more or less reserve troops to maintain order in Germany. But they wanted to make sure that Germany would never rise up again and start another world war. So they're going to limit the size of their military. Germany is also permitted from importing or manufacturing any sort of weapons or any sort of war material whatsoever. Once again, making sure that Germany would never start a world war again. And then finally, Germany is forbidden to buy or build any sort of submarines. Finally, last but not least, probably the most important point in the Treaty of Versailles is the war guilt clause. Germany is going to be forced to um, take full responsibility for everything that they caused, all the damages that they caused during World War I, and everything is put on them. So if you think about that, that's kind of unfair because there was multiple countries that were involved in World War I, but Germany is going to be blamed for all of it. And finally, they're going to be forced to pay war reparations. They're going to be forced to pay over $33 billion over the next 30 years. But we all know after World War I, Germany is in really bad economic shape. They have no money. And then in 1929, stock market crashes, which puts the entire world into the Great Depression. And it's not until 2010 that Germany is going to be able to pay back all of their reparations. But also remember, when Hitler takes over, he immediately stops paying reparations to the Allied forces. So with that being said, guys, make sure that you copy down the information in the chart. Please abbreviate and shorten if you need to. Moving on. So all you guys are going to be doing is, don't worry about those questions. You're going to be filling in our scaffold notes. So make sure some of the underlined words that are in bold will go in the blanks and others will not. So you have to read carefully on the notes when you're filling in the blanks on the handout. So please be aware of that. Okay, so first things first. Hitler is appointed chancellor in 1933 by President Hindenburg. And remember, guys, President Hindenburg, when I say president, that means Germany at this point is a democracy. So after World War I, their government is turned into the Weimar Republic, which is a form of democracy. But when President Hindenburg dies, Hitler immediately takes over, gives up his job as chancellor, and takes over Germany and turns Germany into a dictatorship. In 1933, Hitler will pull Germany out of the League of Nations. Now remember, guys, the whole point of the League of Nations is to keep order, to keep peace, to make sure that war never breaks out again in Europe or around the world. And when countries are pulling out of an association like this, such as the League of Nations, that should be a big red flag for the other countries. They should be worried that Hitler and Germany is doing this, but people don't pay attention because, of course, it's right in the middle of the Great Depression, and they're pretty much having to take care of themselves and their own country and what's happening in their own country. So people don't think much of it. 2 years later, Hitler rebuilds his military in 1935. Now, remember, guys, Germany is only allowed to have 100,000 soldiers, and these soldiers are supposed to be reserve soldiers. They're not even supposed to be active. Hitler completely disregards the Treaty of Versailles, and he rebuilds his army. Now, this should also be another red flag to countries. If a country is rebuilding their army and they have lots and lots of active soldiers, that must mean that country is up to something. But once again, because of what is going on throughout the world with the Great Depression, people are only really worried about their country and what's happening in their own country, and they really don't pay attention to Germany and what Hitler's doing. Of course, this is Hitler's first act of breaking the Treaty of Versailles. So moving on, don't worry about those questions. Remember, guys, the Rhineland. The Rhineland is that buffer zone that is supposed to remain demilitarized, meaning it's a piece of territory or land that is in between France and Germany. And Germany, according to the Treaty of Versailles, is not allowed to have any troops in that area. If you guys are looking at the map, hopefully, you guys can see the buffer zone or the Rhineland, which is has that diagonal pattern. It's land between Germany and France. And France wanted to make sure that Germany will never invade and never start another war with them. So that is why they create this buffer zone. But in 1936, Germany, Hitler, and his rebuilt army move into the Rhineland, once again breaking the Treaty of Versailles. Now, you should hopefully understand that this is another red flag. And if you are France, you should be worried. If Germany is entering land that they are not allowed to be in and they are getting closer and closer to your country's border, they must be up to something. But once again, no one does anything about it. And they don't do anything about it for really two reasons. I've already mentioned one, the Great Depression and what is happening around the world economically. Really, countries are worried about themselves. They got to take care of themselves. But the other reason, and a very important reason, is that countries are scared that if they step up or they intervene or they do anything about what Germany and Hitler is doing, trying to stop them, it will create another world war. And they don't want that. They want to avoid war at all cost, even if that means letting Germany and Hitler pretty much do what they want to do. And that's exactly what happens. And that brings us to the policy of appeasement. And that's exactly what appeasement is. It's giving in to an aggressor in order to avoid war. Now, in this case, the aggressor is Germany. Germany is rebuilding their army. They're pulling out of the League of Nations. They are entering land and territory and areas that they're not supposed to be in. But no one is stepping up to them. No one is stopping them because they are scared that if they do, it will lead to another war, and they don't want that. They can't afford it. They just got out of World War I years previous to this, and they know how catastrophic that was, how many millions of people died, and how much money the war actually cost. So they don't want that. And of course, there is no consequence to Germany, to Hitler, for doing what they have been doing for the last few years because, once again, they are avoiding war, and they're avoiding war at all cost. So Hitler's next agenda is Austria. Now, guys, hopefully you remember reading up and doing some background research on Hitler. Hitler originally was born in Austria. And Hitler has a close tie or relationship to Austria. And they also border Austria. And in 1938, March 12th of 1938, Germany annexes. When you annex something, that means you add it to your territory, to your empire, to your land. And the German Empire is also known as the Third Reich. And once again, by Germany annexing Austria, they are breaking the Treaty of Versailles. But once again, there's no consequence. No one is stopping Germany and Hitler. This is an example of appeasement. Remember, guys, they are avoiding war at all costs. They don't want to start another war, so they don't say anything about it. But Germany is getting stronger and stronger and stronger because they are gaining more land and territory. Now, if you guys notice the pictures on the bottom left-hand picture is Hitler, of course, giving a speech to thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Austria once they cross the Austrian border. The picture on the bottom right is when Germany enters Austria. And if you can already tell, what do you notice are up in the streets of Austria already? Of course, the Nazi flag, the swastika. So a lot of Austrians actually welcomed Germany and Hitler. Many were opposed, but a lot also welcomed them. So moving on from Austria, now we got to focus on another little piece of land that Hitler and Germany have their eyes on. And this land is known as the Sudetenland. Now, you need to know a couple things about the Sudetenland. The Sudetenland is a piece of territory that borders Germany. It's not in Germany, excuse me, but it borders Germany. It's actually in the country of Czechoslovakia. And Hitler and Germany have their eyes on the Sudetenland for a couple reasons. Okay, we'll get into that. But before Hitler goes in and takes over the Sudetenland, which is in Czechoslovakia, there's a big conference that is called. And this conference is known as the Munich Conference. And there's going to be 4 very important individuals that attend the Munich Conference. Number 1, Chamberlain, who is the British Prime Minister. The second person is Daladier, who is the French Prime Minister. Of course, Adolf Hitler, who's the dictator of Germany. And then Adolf Hitler's good pal, Benito Mussolini, who is also the dictator of Italy. So these 4 meet, and they sit down to discuss the Sudetenland at the Munich Conference. So the ironic thing about this meeting is that the 4 meet to discuss land that's in Czechoslovakia, but leaders and representatives from Czechoslovakia are not even invited. So that is very important that you guys understand that. So these 4 countries and these 4 leaders sit down and they talk about the Sudetenland and why they want the Sudetenland and why they should give the Sudetenland to Germany. So of course, here's a picture. You have Mussolini, Hitler, Hitler's interpreter, and then Chamberlain. You have Daladier, who is shaking hands with Benito Mussolini of Italy. But the real question is, why did Hitler want the Sudetenland? So we need to discuss that. So once again, guys, you need to understand the Sudetenland is in the country of Czechoslovakia. And Czechoslovakia borders Germany. But the Sudetenland, which you guys hopefully notice, is that gold color on the map. There's about 3 million German people that live in the Sudetenland. Ethnic Germans, I guess you can call them, that live in the Sudetenland. And Hitler feels that since there is so many ethnic Germans that live in the Sudetenland should be a part of the Third Reich, or the German Empire. So that is his justification. And the 4 leaders meet, and they discuss this. And they all agree to give the Sudetenland to Germany and Hitler under one condition: that Hitler stops expanding, that Germany stops invading and taking over and adding territory, land, and countries to their empire. They need to stop, because eventually it's going to lead to a war. So, of course, Hitler, he agrees to this. He says, yeah, this is the last piece of land or territory that I want. I promise. Of course, he's crossing his fingers behind his back. And France and Britain have the idea that if they give the Sudetenland to Germany, that they are appeasing. They're giving in to Hitler, but they are hoping that Hitler is giving his word that he will not continue to take. And unfortunately, they are dead wrong. And Hitler gets the Sudetenland, and about 6 months later, he invades all of Czechoslovakia, completely lying and going back on his word at the Munich Conference that he told Chamberlain and Daladier. Once again, though, no one steps in. No one does anything about this. There is no consequence whatsoever, which is once again another example of appeasement. These European countries are scared that if they do step in or try to stop Germany, that it's going to lead to another world war. But eventually, they're going to have to be stopped. So looking at this map, guys, Germany and Hitler continue to expand. They continue to make their Third Reich, the German Empire, bigger and bigger and bigger. Of course, every time they are doing this, they are breaking the Treaty of Versailles. And next, Hitler has his eyes on Poland. He is now going further east in Europe, and he wants Poland. If you guys look at Poland on the map, Poland is a big chunk of territory or land. And it's a big country. And if they can add Poland to their empire, they're going to be unstoppable. They're going to be very big and powerful. But if you guys notice, if they add Poland to their empire, they're getting closer and closer and closer to a very, very big and powerful Eastern European country, which is the Soviet Union, which is what you see as Russia, but it's called the Soviet Union. And we all know, we should know by now, that Hitler does not like the Soviet Union. Hitler does not like the idea of communism. That's why Germany turned into a fascist country, because of the fear of communism. And he disliked Stalin, and Stalin did the same. He did not like Hitler. But Hitler and Germany have two options. You either invade Poland and risk a war with the Soviet Union, or option two, you try to make a side deal with Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union, so you don't become enemies with them, but rather you become allies with them. So, of course, Germany and Hitler, very, very smart. They come together and they form the Non-Aggression Pact. And Germany and the Soviet Union formed this secret alliance or pact. And they signed this Non-Aggression Pact on August 23rd, 1939. And under this Non-Aggression Pact, there's two major points to it. A, Soviet Union and Germany will never, ever fight each other whatsoever. They will never invade each other. And then the second part is that they will divide up Eastern Europe amongst each other. Now remember, guys, during World War I, when Russia had to pull out of World War I, when Vladimir Lenin took over, remember he signed the armistice with Germany, he signed that treaty with Germany, ending World War I with Germany, but as a result of Russia getting out of World War I, they had to give up lots and lots of land. Now, some of this land that they had to give up will be given back to the Soviet Union if they make this deal with Germany. So it's a good deal in the eyes of the Germans, and it's a good deal in the eyes of the Soviet Union. So if you guys take a look at the political cartoon, if it's tough to see at the bottom, it says, "Wonder how long the honeymoon will last." So what does that mean? Keep an idea or think about what that question means. Wonder how long the honeymoon will last. So as a result of this deal, the Soviet Union will get Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, which is countries that used to belong to the Soviet Union, but they lost that territory after they got out of World War I. So I've already mentioned before, this is a good deal for the Soviet Union. Of course, they signed the pact, and on September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. But that is the final straw. 2 days after Germany invades Poland, France and Great Britain put their foot down finally. And on September 3rd, 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany. 2 weeks after, the Soviet Union will invade Poland from the east. Now officially, everyone, World War II has officially begun. So what I want you guys to do, and this is going to be with one of your questions, the very last question that you guys have to answer, is take a look at this map. And this map is very important to understand what you're looking at. Please make sure that you're looking at the key or the legend on the top left-hand side. And you need to really look at the detail to answer question number 10 on your handout. So please go back if you guys need to in regards to this video lecture. Make sure that you fill in all of your notes and make sure that you answer questions 1 through 10.